Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Talking Brazil Ball. I'm James Brook, as always, your host today, and I'm here once again with my co-host, George. How are we doing today, George?
Hello, James. Yeah, doing all right. Thank you. Again, another miserable day outside. And let's cheer ourselves up with some Brazil ball. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. It does always seem to be a bit miserable, doesn't it? It was a shame. It was a really nice morning. I was working here upstairs and it was really nice, sunny, and we took the dog out for a walk and it immediately started raining. And it's not really stopped since. So it's pretty grey over here.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the same here as well, obviously. But yeah, it was a nice morning, but has turned drizzly quite quickly.
Yes.
But yeah, but that's the way it goes over here, doesn't it? Really, unfortunately.
Yes, it is. And it's certainly not the way it goes where we're traveling today. So, anybody who's been listening so far, thank you very much for your listens and your views. You'll know that we're traveling through Brazil and we're traveling through the clubs of Serie A for the 2024 edition. And just in the off season, we're looking at the different clubs and looking at the cities where they come from, or the regions at least, and trying to give a bit of an introduction into all of them and to learn about them ourselves as well. So far we've covered Rio, we've covered Sao Paulo, we've covered Porto Alegre, and we've covered where did we cover last time?
It was Porto Alegre last
Yeah,
time, wasn't
sorry,
it?
yeah. So we've done 3
Yeah,
and we did the introduction. Yeah, you're right. So
that's it.
um
So it's episode 5, isn't it? We're on 5 now.
episode 5, yeah. So today we're again covering another region. So George, would you like to introduce? I know we've been a little bit confused as to exactly what we're doing because we've concentrated on cities. Obviously, Sao Paulo, Rio have a number of different clubs, but yeah, as we go down the teams, it's a little bit more slim pickings. So if you can introduce where we're heading to today.
Yeah, so I'll try and muddle my way through it. Like you said, you sort of gave me a little bit of a. I was a bit confused, I think, but we're heading to Bahia, the city, or the state of Bahia, to have a look at the teams Bahia, Vitoria, and of course Fortaleza. So yeah, that's it. But I got a bit confused, and I thought Bahia was the city. It's not. It's a state, isn't it? So
Well, you didn't actually mention the city where we are going. Two of the clubs are from the same city.
oh yeah, so it's Salvador, the city. Yeah, sorry. Like I said, I'm getting confused now with it.
Well,
so
because two of
yeah,
the cities, so two of the clubs are from Salvador. One of them's from just north of Salvador in Serara, Fortaleza. So it's all the same region, but yeah, it's two different estates and two different cities, obviously. So yeah, that's what we're doing. So you just mentioned them there briefly, George. Do you want to just
yeah,
mention the clubs again, just that we're going to be drilling into today?
yeah. So the clubs are Bahia, um, Vitoria, and of course Fortaleza. So yeah, three of them. So yeah, so like you said, as we're going down the clubs, they get less and less. I don't know whether I don't think each of us knew too much about each of those three teams. So it's been interesting to have a little look at them and everything like that as well, and see and see see what we can get through today here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you say, we weren't too much aware of the clubs themselves. Also, not really the place they're from, the city Salvador, but it is
Yeah,
actually the third most inhabited, or the fourth most inhabited, actually, city in Brazil. So it's behind obviously Rio and Sao Paulo, and also the capital, the kind of nominated capital, Brasilia. So it's about 3 million people live there. So it's a pretty big city. It's right on the east coast of Brazil, and it's also a former capital. So I think it was the old colonial Brazil, the capital. Interestingly, it's heavily influenced by kind of Afro-Brazilian. So
right.
that kind of it's a lot of Afro-Brazilian culture, and apparently it's a city recognized for its food, its art, and its architecture.
Yeah, so
So that's kind of an interesting, a fascinating, and a big city as well.
Yeah, I think I was reading it's sort of the city of color kind of thing. It's very bright and vibrant, and and everything like that. So it sounds like a great place, to be fair.
Yeah, it does. It does, and probably a little bit overlooked by ignorant people like ourselves. If we were visiting, we'd probably head straight to the Copacabana and maybe to Sao Paulo, but you perhaps wouldn't look as far as Salvador. So hopefully, people do, because it does look like a really nice city, doesn't it?
Oh, it definitely does. Yeah, fantastic. Like I said, lots of color. Like you say, you mentioned the music, the food. It looks really good. To be fair, so yeah, if you ever go into Brazil, get yourselves there and don't just fly across it.
Yeah, that's it. And we mentioned the food, the culture, what have you. But let's talk about what we're really here to talk about, and that's the football. So,
Yes.
first club we're going to look at is, let's look first at what I can deem to be probably the biggest of the three clubs. So let's look at Bahia first. And so, George, you just want to give an overview into what you've learned about Bahia. It is a quite fascinating club for a few different reasons. So, what have you kind of come across about Bahia?
Yeah, yeah. So Bahia, so
Or
Esporte
Bahia? I
Club.
don't know. I think it might be Bahia.
Yeah, I think it's Bahia. So Esporte Club Bahia is the full name of the club, or just, of course, Bahia. It was founded on New Year's Day of 1931, when players from two clubs decided to merge. So the clubs that decided to merge were the Associação Atlética de Bahia and the Club Bahiano de Tennis.
Mhm.
So it's probably a tennis club, obviously. They decided to discontinue. And then a few years later, Bahia came the most popular team in the northeast. Sorry, yeah, the northeast of Brazil. So it is quite a well-supported team, I think. This, to be fair, but I think they had a lot of trouble in of the early 2000s. The sponsor that they had at the time, it went bankrupt. So Bahia basically just went completely downhill for quite a few years, and relegated all the way through, I think, to Serie C at one point. So yeah, and then obviously they've made the way up. The stadium is the Casa de Esportes Arena Fonte Nova. It's a capacity of 47,915, opened in 2013. And interestingly as well, Vitoria, the rivals of Bahia, they sometimes play there occasionally as well. So that's a little bit of an interesting piece on it as well.
Yeah, well, in terms
Current,
of the fan base, you say they became one of the most popular. They do seem to be the most popular side in the northeast, and they are they had the largest average attendance in Brazil while they were down in Serie C. So you say they went down all the way down, but they still managed. The fan base still kind of kept going and kept supporting them, and that's apparently not unusual for Bahia. They've been numerous seasons, numerous years, the most supported team in terms of bums on seats. So that's, I'm sure you'll appreciate as a Leeds fan. We used to go to Leeds games when it was down in League One and Championship, and half the stadium would be closed, or at least the top tier of the
yep,
main stand would be closed. So it's
yep,
hard to get
yep.
those fans there. But yeah, they managed to do that.
Yeah, fantastic. Obviously, like you said, well supported side, and I think I did read that stat as well. It was, I think the average when they were in Serie C was the best average attendance of anywhere in Brazil. I think from even the top two divisions, but above it as well. So yeah, obviously fantastically supported. The current manager is a chap named Rogerio Cini. And he's been there since September 2023.
Well, we
So
mentioned we know Rogerio Ceni. We talked about him, Sao Paulo. The listeners, let's see if they remember. But he's the goal
yeah, of
scoring
course.
goalkeeper. He played over a
Yes,
thousand games for Sao Paulo. it's him. He's there, Rogerio Ceni. So he's a World Cup winner. He's a big personality and a big name in Brazilian football. So it's interesting him being there. He's relatively young. I don't think he is that young actually for a manager, but I think he's quite inexperienced as a manager, perhaps.
Yeah, I didn't get. No, he's not inexperienced. I think he's got quite a lot of experience. I think he's been at Sao Paulo actually a couple of times as
Well,
the manager. To be
yeah, that's
fair,
his club.
I'm not sure. I can't remember how old he is actually, but yeah, he seems to have had quite a few managerial positions as what I can remember. To be fair, but he's currently at Bahia. Obviously, it's been taken over now by the City Group, hasn't it? But just before I kind of touch on that, the team was founded with the motto "Nasceu para vencer," which is, again, I probably butchered it, but it means "born to win." So, I mean, I don't think they generally win a lot of titles, but that was the name that was the motto that they were given by who I don't know, but yeah, maybe they will win more with this new influx of money that has come in from the City Group, maybe. But that happened in December of 2022, so just over a year now they've been owned by the City Group. And yeah, we all know about them. They've sort of monopolised a lot of football groups, haven't they, and football clubs. I think they've got 13 teams now, the City Group. So obviously Man City being their biggest one. And we've seen City feed off other teams that they own as well. So let's see if that happens with Bahia. I don't think it's happened much so far yet, but
I think it only went through in May, so it's not been that long. I think they're the newest member of it, but yeah, I mean, people have different views about the type, the likes of the City Group and similar clubs. I don't think Red Bull's quite the same, but similar kind of model, I guess. And people have different views about it, but in the case of Bahia, I think it's especially disappointing because they were fan owned. So they were fan owned. The fans apparently took, like you said before, they had issues. The sponsors went under, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the fans seemed to rally and I don't know if they rescued the club, but they took over in 2013. And for a time, it seems that Bahia were basically a kind of like a socially active, like an activist kind of club. They were socially engaged in politics, and they had a lot of kind of campaigns for racial equality and kind of the LGBT kind of community, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So they managed to reduce ticket prices and pay off debt as a fan-owned kind of club. And yeah, I saw one bit where they had I think it was 2019, they did a campaign against like an oil spill in the region, and they wore some special shirts which had kind of like a black oil stain around the kind of the neck. So they were very kind of engaged in the community, and the fans, it seems, voted through the City Group, so they waved it through, which seems a real shame for a club like that to become just basically part of a model for City to cook the books. Basically, it just seems a little bit unfair. But that's modern football, isn't it? And if the fans want it, perhaps they want to make good on that motto of being born to win. So we'll see what happens. Like you say, it might be that it becomes a bit more kind of traffic between the two clubs, but we'll just have to see, won't we? But it is a shame reading all about them and to see the way they've gone. It is a bit disappointing.
Well, this is it. Some clubs just can't resist that sort of big payout, and that kind of, like you said, adhering to the club motto of like born to win. That big group comes in, you can't resist it, even though the fans, like you said, had fought so hard for it and to get it back in the position it is. But like you said, like money talks in the football, and and City Group I thought about the Red Bull system as well, and the Red Bull brand. I don't know which one's quite bigger, really, but I suppose it's probably Red Bull, isn't it? But
No,
at the same,
no way.
you don't think the City Group has? I suppose City Group has just monopolised it all. They've got what 13
They
clubs
own
now.
way more clubs. They
Yeah,
own way
well, they
more
do.
clubs.
I
They've got
mean,
more wealth.
yeah, well, it doesn't surprise me, obviously, with the Abu Dhabi, um, where it is and everything and all that. That they obviously own. Obviously, City is the biggest one, but they just like you said, they cook the books. They just I don't know if it's sort of legal, what kind of half of it's that's going on really, in terms of inter-club relations and sending club players on loan to the clubs that they own, and then sort of selling them on to clubs that they own as well for fees. It seems a little bit dodgy to me, to be honest, but
Yeah, well, it's
that's
a bit
that's the way
murky.
it is, but that's the way that they operate. And whether Bahia get success from it, we'll have to, like you said, we'll have to just wait and see. But they are, I think they are kind of. I don't know if they're putting together some kind of squad at the moment. I haven't seen any news on any real, transfers, for Bahia this over the close season kind of thing. They got Estupinian, didn't they, from Hull, but I can't see him kind of breaking the bank for them. So
No.
we'll wait and see how they progress. But it's
Yeah, I
interesting.
mean,
I can't go on.
go on.
Can't remember where they sort of finished off last season. To be fair, but
That's what I was about to say. They were
um,
16th
uh,
last season, so they just
six
avoided
house.
relegation.
Oh yeah, by a point, right? So
Yeah,
crikey, so they must have they done that on the last day then, didn't they? Um,
yeah.
Last season. So oh well, like I said, with a new takeover this season, with it just going through, maybe it's a new kind of dawn for Bahia.
Perhaps. Well, the last championship they have won two Serie A, so we didn't mention at the
Right,
start. The last one they won was 1988. So
right.
they're not, they're not one of the real big boys, but they are kind of in terms of the northeast of Brazil. They are probably the biggest club. They do compete in the Baiano Championship, so that's the regional or the state championship. So along with Vitoria, but not Fortaleza, which we'll go on to. But yeah, Bahia are the most successful club comfortably in terms of the Baiano. They've won 50 of those. So that yeah, they are the kind of the big boys, but they don't have a lot to show for it. So we'll see if that kind of changes. But yeah, anything to add on Bahia just before we wrap up and move on?
Well, just in the here and now with Bahia, like you said, you mentioned the Baiano, James, and they actually play on Sunday. Sunday is the next game they play
Mm.
in that competition. They did play actually in on Sunday, this Sunday just gone against Vitoria. Vitoria did beat them by 3 goals to 2. I'm not gonna make myself sound silly again and try and pronounce this team that they're playing on Sunday because it's a little bit of a tongue
A tongue
twister,
twist.
if you like. But I'll have a go anyway. Even though I said I wouldn't. Juanz,
Have a go.
Juanzi, well, I'm trying to there. Huazi, Huazien, Huazi Renzi,
Forget it.
Huazi Renzi. Well, I think they're called Huazi Renzi. So
Right.
I don't know, but I don't know. But that's who they're playing on Sunday anyway, in the
Right.
Bayano.
Okay. Well, we'll look out. We'll just have a look for who Bahia are playing because
Yeah, just
I'm,
look for
I'm not sure anybody will be able
yeah, yeah. I mean, I
to follow.
can't like. I need to brush up on my Portuguese, James. That is for sure.
Well, we'll see. Maybe you got it right. I don't know. I don't even
Well,
know what it was.
perhaps. I mean, there you go. I mean, you're bad mouthing me, but you don't know what it's called yourself.
That's true. That's true. Okay. Well, let's see how they get on in the buy. I know they usually do pretty
Yeah,
well, so I'd probably back them. But anyway, let's move on because let's we've got some other clubs to talk about too.
of
So
course.
yeah, we're going to talk about Bahia's big city rivals. They are the rivals on the other end of the Bar V derby, the Bar V rivalry, which they seem to like to do the shortening of the names, and that's what the derby's called.
Oh,
Apparently, the Derby of Peace. I'm not sure why. Didn't get why, but yeah, that's the city rivals. So yeah, they are not quite as successful as Bahia. They've never won the Serie A championship. They did come a runners up once in 1993, so a pretty long time ago now, as you'll know, George. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, they've won the Baiano 29 times, so they're the second most successful club in that respect. But yeah, what have you learned about Victoria then, George? Recently promoted, of course, won the Serie B last year, so they are a brand new, well, not brand new, but brand new this year. So what have you been able to uncover about Bahia's city rivals?
Yeah, so like you said, Victoria, they won the Serie B. I think I couldn't find this out, James, but I think they've got two promotions in a row. I think they came up from Serie C in the
Mm,
22 in 2022.
I'm not
So
sure.
yeah, I think they might have done. But yeah, again, the full name is similar to Bahia in that it's Esporte Club Vitoria, or again, just Vitoria for short. Founded on May the 13th, 1899, by brothers Arthur and Artemio Valentine, along with 17 other young lads. Um, they were from an old Bahia family and discovered football during their studies in England. So they basically found football in England and came back home to Bahia and said, yeah, this is a good game. Let's try it out. And obviously they formed Victoria. It was initially named Victoria. It was initially named a cricket club, Club de Cricket Victoria, because of all them lived. All of the guys lived in Victoria, the neighborhood Victoria, in Salvador. So 2 years later, they played their first football match. So in 1901, they played the first official game. Again, there wasn't much information that I could really find out about Victoria, James. To be fair, current manager Leo Conde, 50-year-old Brazilian man, and again he's been in there. He did win the promotion, been in there since February of 2023. Current stadium, Estadio Manuel Baradas, is a capacity of 34,535. I think it's named after a club official or something along those lines. So yeah, I couldn't really find out that much about this club. I'll be absolutely honest. I mean, what do you know about
Yeah.
Victoria?
No, again, it's from the outside, kind of looking in as people who aren't, you know, especially knowledgeable about the clubs themselves, trying to find out more. It's a bit tricky. Just
Yeah,
kind of looking around. I did see that obviously as initially as a cricket club from I don't know if they were English. They weren't English, whether they were they spent time in England, did you say?
yeah. These guys, these brothers, these two brothers, basically, I think they must have gone to England at some stage and just found football there and taken it back home, basically. So yeah, it
Yeah.
was obviously built on sort of English, sort of yeah, what they'd found in England, but in no way I think it's a couple of Brazilian lads, basically, and
Yeah.
then
Well,
a few of their friends, a good lot of their friends, basically.
yeah, well, the neighborhood that they were in there, Victoria, apparently is a really posh neighborhood. So
Right,
it kind of makes sense, I guess, that though in those days, people coming over to study in Brazil, in England from Brazil, a cricket club, you know, it's probably kind of quite well to do. And apparently it's a really nice part of Salvador. So
right.
it's apparently lined with mango trees and luxury condos overlooking the bay.
Wow. Well,
So
get me to there, James.
say, yeah,
Victoria
have a bit of that.
in yeah, yeah, mangoes and all sorts. That would be fabulous, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yes,
So
get me.
amongst the mangoes and maybe as the mango trees as goalposts, who knows? They
Yeah,
concocted Victoria. So yeah, difficult to find too much about them. As I say, it wouldn't surprise me if they did come do a back to back promotions because I told you about that 1993 runners up spot. They actually came
yes,
runners up in Serie B the year before that 92. So they
right.
were runners up promoted as runners up, and then went straight up back to the top and came runners up in '93. So
Wow.
um, they obviously have form in a bit of a kind of a 1-2 kind of bounce back, or a kind of a bounce up. So yeah, they have form, but they were in the third tier as recently as 2006. So again, like Bahia, they've been down in the depths, and they've come back up. So they've spent time in both divisions. I found that they're actually they have quite a renowned training kind of centre, or training
Yes.
kind of place. So you mentioned about the stadium, the Baradas, and they've got a place called the Toca do Leão, and that's apparently quite a well-regarded kind of facility,
Right.
where the visiting national teams often request to be housed there, especially if they're playing
Right.
kind of northeast. So it's quite well to do. They put on a project as well in the past, which is called the Vitória Cidadania, which is a project which looks after vulnerable children in the area and puts on things for them. So they've got loads of pitches, sand courts, concrete courts, football pitches. So that's something that was notable about Victoria. But aside from that,
Wow.
yeah, the fact they play in red and black,
Yeah.
not too much more perhaps we can say about the kind of the club itself.
No, I mean, I can't. Like I said, I can't really find out too much more. I mean, it does make sense, like you said, with the sort of training facilities, with the whole thing that they've got going there, the fabulous facilities and everything like that, that they would bring through some quality youth graduates. So if we have a look at that, I mean, I didn't mention any from Bahia because we didn't really we couldn't find any, could we really, amongst ourselves.
That's a good
But
point. Yeah, we did. Well, we found one. We found one who
we
is a
did,
very
yes.
notable one, actually. Yeah, we forgot to
Yep.
mention
Yep.
who is a notable player, but we don't really want to talk too much about him. And that's Danny Alves, who is, of course, had a long career in Europe, a long successful career. But yeah, we don't want to go into him. And if you're not sure why that is, then a quick Google search of his name will tell you why. But yeah, go on, George, because I know there's quite a few from Victoria who are equally celebrated, and yeah, let's have a little look at who those are.
Yeah, I mean it's fabulous, James. I didn't realize this until I started researching it, but there's names that are, much more well celebrated than that one you just mentioned. Dida, who remembers him? The World Cup winning goalkeeper for Brazil. He came through at Vitoria, as did Hulk, who obviously went on to play at St. Petersburg for a while. Currently back in Serie A in Brazil with MG, isn't he? Atletico MG.
Yeah, Gallo.
Gallo, yeah. Obviously, as well, David Luiz, Chelsea and Arsenal fans will fondly remember him, or not so much, possibly. He was a bit of a rogue, wasn't he, at times at centre back, but a very notable and recognisable face. There's a lad as well named Duda. So you've got Dida and Duda. I think Duda was as well a Brazilian international player, played in Europe for a few years, I think with Olympiacos, and I think Spartak Moscow as well, possibly. And then we've got Gabriel Paulista as well, who used to play for Arsenal. As well as Valencia, amongst a few others as well. So there's a few very notable and recognisable names in there, Brazilian international players who have come through at Vitoria. And like I said, I'm pretty sure Vitoria did make a double. I've made a double promotion up from the third division this time as well. So maybe there's a few more in there as well. There was a lad as well who, forgive me, I can't remember his name, but he did play at Wigan Athletic for a short while. So bit of a change again from Salvador to Wigan, but I
Well,
can't
not many
remember his
mango
name.
trees in Wigan. Not many mango trees
Definitely,
in Wigan, I'm afraid.
definitely not. He'd be disappointed, wouldn't he, when he came to visit? But he was only on loan. But yeah, I can't actually remember his name, to be fair. But yeah, there's a few notable names And it seems a very good club, like you said, playing in the same as Bahia, aren't they? Playing in the Baeno as well, and I think they're doing quite well there as well at the moment in that particular competition. Play again tomorrow as we record. Um, this one's a little bit easier to say. Nautico Nautico is the team that they're coming up against. So an interesting club.
Yeah, well, you kind of mentioned about them, if there might be any gems there at the minute, and the potentially might be. I mean, interesting with David Luiz is that he isn't from, because often the players who come through are from the region itself, but David Luiz is
Yeah,
actually from Sao Paulo and was released at
right,
Sao Paulo when he was about 14 and was
right.
picked up by Vitoria. And apparently he was initially played in defensive midfield and didn't play
Right.
well there, so the club were on the verge of releasing him, but moved him back to centre back, where we all know he played. He wasn't a traditional centre back, but he was still a good centre back. Won the lot with Chelsea and played with
Yeah.
Brazil for a long time. And he made his debut actually. So they moved the centre back. He did okay. They kept him. And when he made his debut, Vitoria were in Serie C. So in 2006, and they got promoted that year, and David Luiz played at the end of that season, and from there he went directly to Benfica. So you just have to, it's just amazing how clubs like Benfica pick up a player like David Luiz from the Brazilian third division. I mean, obviously Vitoria have a good youth academy, they've got notable players, so maybe they'd be keeping an eye, but still to be watching them that low down and to pick up a player who was probably 17, 18 maybe at the time is incredible. 19 maybe it's incredible. So yeah, interesting story, David Luiz.
Yeah, he is, isn't he? And like you said, all the way from the third division, Benfica, giant of Portugal, picking up that, him, and he's probably going straight into their team, I imagine.
I
Uh,
don't know.
uh,
I think he played. I don't think he was straight into the team, but he was before long. I think he was getting games basically. Yeah.
yeah, because then you're going straight in, you're getting a game after a little while, you're then making your move to the Premier League. And like I said, he was a little bit of a rogue centre back, but he held his own. Like you said, he won the lot with Chelsea. He was very good with Arsenal as well. And I can't remember where he's at right now, but he's still
He's at
playing, I think.
Flamengo. Yeah, he's at
Flamengo,
Flamengo.
yes, of course he is. He's at Flamengo, isn't he? Yeah, of course. He must be in his late 30s now, but still going. And again, we see that where older players in the late 30s are still very much of use and in a real sort of integral part of a squad, even at the ages of what they're at. And we mentioned Hulk as well, who's in his very late 30s, I think, still playing for Galo. So, and he did well last season. He was still banging in goals. So it's good. It's obviously, like you said, got a prestigious academy.
Brush up on your English as well, don't you?
Seems like that way, doesn't it? Gosh, not doing so well today with either language. But yeah, looks like they've got a prestigious youth academy, and they've got some really good players and coming in there. So that's interesting to see how they do. Really interested to see how all of the promoted sides do, but maybe Vitoria of them all. Let's wait and see.
Yeah, well, I picked up on just two more, just quickly to mention of the youth academy of kind of a bit further back. Bebeto, who was a big name actually, part of the '94 World Cup winning squad, sixth highest all-time scorer for Brazilian national team. He started at Vitoria before going to Deportivo in Spain and was real success there. So he had three spells with Vitoria. So you talk about players coming back in the late 30s. He did that back to his hometown club. Two very short spells, I think, in his later career. But he started off there before, a successful spells across Europe and certainly with the national team too. And another chap, Van Petter, who I think we mentioned in the past once, was a World Cup winner in 2002. He didn't play much as far as I know, and he was Vittoria kind of born and bred as well, and went from Vittoria to PSV, so Brazil to PSV,
Right.
which was a well trodden path in the early 90s with Ronaldo and Romario as well before that. So didn't work out quite as well for Van Petter, but he was another to probably to mention too. So yeah, but a big club, and we will keep an eye on them certainly how they get on this season. So two clubs from Salvador. That's kind of the big ones there, and it'd be good to see the derby, the Bavi derby in
Yep.
Serie A this season. So we'll move along onto we're headed north. We're traveling up north to the state of Serrara, and we are heading to Fortaleza. So again, Fortaleza, not a particularly successful club. Have never won a kind of one of the major tournaments. They did actually make it to the Copa Sudamericana final last year, 2023. So that's the kind of the Europa League type second competition, and they lost to Quito, the Ecuadorian team. So I think it was after extra time or penalties. It was a draw, certainly in 90 minutes. So that was a real big blow for them. They had a good season last year, finished 10th, but that would have been a big major trophy for them. But anyway, they did manage to get it. So what can you tell us, George, about Fortaleza? I know you mentioned it. It's been a bit of a tricky one to come by, but let's cover kind of what we know about them.
Yeah, so yeah, like you, James, I think I've found it out of the three of them most difficult to find information on Fortaleza. But here we go, Fortaleza, a Sport club, or again, like the other two, a sporty club seems to be a popular thing, or just Fortaleza. Founded on the 18th of October 1918. But it also is known for futsal, handball, as I think just those two sports as well. So it is also a futsal and handball club as well as a football club. On the 23rd of February 1912, Alcides Santos founded a club called Fortaleza and participated shortly after in the founding of Stella Football Club. So it was this sort of thing that it was founded like a few years after it actually was founded. So this fella Alcides Santos founded it basically in 1912, but it wasn't until 1918 that the actual football club, as people know it now, was actually born. I think it was obviously in its sort of early sort of structures in those first sort of 6 years it is before it eventually was known as Fortaleza Sporting Club. So so its colours it represents the French flag as well, James. So it's red, white, and blue. This is because the founder, this fella Alcides Santos, he spent time in France, and he decided what a good idea it might be to put the French colours into a Brazilian team. So that's where the colours of Fortaleza come from. The current stadium, Estadio Governado Placido Castelo, is where they currently play. Its capacity, it's a massive stadium, 57,867 is the current capacity. It's also, though, interestingly, again, used by, I think, the rivals of Fortaleza, city rivals. They currently play in Serie B, a club named Serie A Sporting Club. So they're playing in the division below, but also play at Fortaleza's home stadium. And the current manager, and a little one that might be interest of a fellow Leeds fans like myself, a man formerly of Newell's Old Boys, the Argentinian club, of course. When Marcelo Bielsa took over Leeds fans took on Newell's Old Boys as a little bit of a second team, if you like. This fella, Juan Pablo Voivoda, 49-year-old Argentinian man, he was playing at youth level under Marcelo Bielsa at the time. Bielsa came in and managed He was the manager then when he was in the youth side, when Valvoda was in the youth team there. Managed Newell's Old Boys as well at caretaker level later on in his career, in his managerial career. Hasn't come out of Argentina in his managerial career, only for a short stint in Chile. But yeah, was played for Newell's Old Boys and that sort of thing as well. He's been there since 2021. So yeah, he's an interesting character really, of Croatian and Italian descent, and he actually holds an Italian passport. Does Voivoda? So yeah, interesting one really.
Yeah, that sounds good. The like you say, the stadium, I think it's quite an old one, but it was renovated
Yeah.
for the World Cup, like a lot of them are. So I think it's quite modern now, and they seem like quite a kind of a forward-facing club. They seem to be steadily improving the results and the league finishes. They seem to have bounced kind of between Serie A and Serie B for the last 20 years or so, and I think probably for most of the history. But they seem to be solidifying the place now as a top level side, and hopefully going from a little bit of strength to strength, because it's funny reading about the rivals. Seara or Ciara, I'm not sure
Yeah,
again the pronunciation, but they're
yeah.
obviously they're like Bahia, the club named after the state, and they're apparently the team with more history in the top division. So they've spent more seasons in the top division than Fortaleza, but have never won it as well. So they are perhaps a club we might have looked at. They weren't too far away, I don't think, last year in Serie B, biggish club. But yeah, we won't go too much into them. But they're obviously Fortaleza. We try to group the teams together by kind of region, and they're not quite in with the Salvador clubs because they don't quite have that rivalry, and they're more a big rival with Sara. But they still, I'm sure, have a bit of a something with the two clubs of Salvador. They all compete together in the Copa Nordeste, which is kind of a regional championship. So it seems that Bahia and Vitoria play in, and probably a couple of others play as well as in the Baiano. They play in the Copa Nordeste as well, which seems to run alongside it. So, it's a crazy system that they have in over there, really, isn't it? But yeah, like I say, we couldn't really find too much more out about Fortaleza. I don't know if you had anything else or any kind of players who came through the ranks or anything along those lines.
You know what? I couldn't find any, James. And just to mention Sierra, they finished mid-table Serie B last season. Now Fortaleza play, like you said, in the local region competition, Copa del Nordeste. They actually play on Thursday, this coming Thursday as of recording, against Sport Recife. So Sport Recife are quite a well-known Brazilian team. Maybe maybe a few of the listeners know of this team, but they play them early hours of Thursday morning. So interested to see if they come through that one. But the only one I don't know any of the players that come through the youth academy. I couldn't find much about who came out of there, any notable names. But the man that I can't get my head around, and you say to me, get over it, but I just can't get over the man named Pikachu they've got playing for them at the moment. But it seems mental to me. But obviously he played a little bit in Japan, didn't he? Where I imagine they coined his name, his nickname.
No, I don't think that
Pikachu.
was the case. I don't think that was the case. That wasn't the case. We looked it up. It wasn't anything to do with that. It was basically, I think, because he was small and fast or something along those lines. It had nothing to do with that. So it's not his real name. It's they all have they have to distinguish themselves, and yeah, it's a bit of a funny one, isn't it? But
it is, because
it makes him stand out.
Yeah, Yago Pikachu, yeah. But yeah, again, I don't really know too much about this club. Like I said, the manager intrigued me a little bit with his links to Newell's Old Boys with the Bielsa kind of link there. So he was in the youth team while Bielsa was the manager, basically. But he never played under him. He didn't make his debut till a few years after Bielsa had left. But he seems to have flirted with them in terms of managing or caretaker managing them a few times. And Juan Pablo Voivoda. So yeah, but yeah, I don't know too much generally about the club itself, and I couldn't find a great deal about it, to be fair.
Yeah, it's the only I mean, it's interesting to note about how we spoke about in the other episodes about Palmeiras and about Gremio and International, other clubs who've had Italian. Palmeiras were Italian, weren't they? Palestra Italia. Gremio was a German club. And now we've had English from Vittoria, from English influence, which is kind of more in keeping with the European way, and now a French kind of club, which obviously wasn't by French people, but it was French influence. So you see that kind of wide palette of influences and clubs, and that makes for a really kind of interesting melting pot amongst the division and in the country. So it's nice to have all those different kind of identities and that kind of thing. And once you know about them, you can kind of connect things with the club and the players and that kind of thing. So the only player I could find that had come through at Fortaleza was Everton, who's at Flamengo as well now. And we did speak about Everton last week because he was at Gremio, came through at Gremio. He was at Vitoria briefly before that. So he's from the region. Serie A, and he left for Gremio, so that's actually where he came through. But yeah, they don't seem to have much of a tradition, so hopefully that can change in the years to come. Anyway, we'll keep a watch over them and see. So, any final thoughts on Fortaleza or kind of the football in the northeast? And you mentioned Recife there; they're a club we potentially would like to look at. They're a big club from the northeast. But yeah, any closing thoughts, George, before we wrap up episode 5?
Well, I suppose it's interesting to look at these teams, James. Like you said, these clubs are from a lot of European influencers, and obviously, like you said, Fortaleza with the lad who founded them years ago, having spent time in France, thought it was a good idea to bring the French sort of colours along to a Brazilian team. It's very interesting to learn about these clubs. Obviously, that, like we said, the 3 that we covered today, probably not the biggest of teams, but probably bigger than we realised. But again, in terms of Brazil and the stature of clubs, these are probably not where you'd immediately point to and say they're a massive club. But it's interesting the same way to have a look at these clubs. Again, we'll keep an eye on them. I always like to have a look at teams that come up as well. So Vitoria was an interesting one to kind of have a look at. But here, with the might of the City group behind them, let's see if they can, knock on the door of the likes of Palmeiras and these sort of teams. And yeah, it's all to play for, isn't it, at the start of the season? So let's just wait and see. But sounds like a fascinating place as well. Probably out of the ones that we've maybe looked at, probably the one that sounds most appealing to myself. Potentially, so it's interesting.
Yeah, I agree with that. It sounds like a vibrant city, and perhaps that's like we mentioned with the Red Bull groups when we looked at Bragantino. The City group aren't stupid; they know where they're looking. Perhaps they saw a club that has the potential to be a bit of behemoth, and I'm sure that the identity around it and the Afro culture and that kind of stuff, maybe we'll start to see a bit more of if the club become a bit more prominent, especially in European thinking with that tie to City. So yeah, that's it really then for today's episode. Like I say, the regional championships are ongoing at the moment. And we're inching closer to the start of Serie A. So I think we've covered 14 clubs now. So we've got 2 more episodes really where we'll just break down the remaining 6, and then we're going to look ahead with a couple of season previews. So that's going to be good to get into actually current affairs and looking at some of these some of these clubs do in the present day.
Yeah, definitely, James. I think that's it, isn't it? We're doing the overviews of the clubs now. Like I said, we've got a couple more episodes to wrap it up with, and then we start to get into, like you said, the here and now. I know we've touched on it briefly in these episodes with the regional competitions going on, but when we get into the meat of it, obviously when we get into the season, that's what we're going to be talking about on a week-to-week basis. Is what happened in Serie A in the match day, whatever it is. So yeah, it'd be great to get in and have a look at the previews. I think we're going to look at the who's favourites basically, and for this season coming up, who the promoted teams. Sorry, so there's a few ideas. So yeah, keep listening. If you're enjoying it, drop a comment there. If you're watching on YouTube, drop your comments in. Follow us on Spotify. All that kind of thing on the Instagram and Twitter accounts, and we're trying to keep up with it and keep people up to date. And I know we're enjoying doing these podcasts, so it's great.
That's right. So let's wrap up. One last question for you, George, before we do go.
Okay.
Can you just tell me who Bahia are playing? Could you just tell me who Bahia are playing on there?
Oh gosh, it's yes. I mean, if you could, it's was he Renzi? Was he Renzi? Gosh, yeah. You did have to make me say that one again, didn't you? Gosh, I think it's
couldn't let you.
Yeah, couldn't let me go without having a laugh again on that one.
Well, perhaps we'll learn that for next week. So
yeah,
meantime,
I mean, it's Where's the Renzi? Goodness
what does that
knows.
even begin with? What's the
it's
first letter of that?
J.
J. Gosh. Okay. Well, we'll have to have a look at that next week.
Yeah, have a look, and perhaps we can open it up with how I actually learned how to say it, maybe. But let's wait. Yeah, because they're playing. I don't know where this team are coming from. In terms of
they'll be in the northeast region as well.
Yeah, I can't.
Oh yes, Juazerense.
That sounds a bit more like. That sounds a bit more like it, but yeah,
not quite there. Not quite there yet.
Well, I think yours was better than mine, but yeah, there you go. I can't find any information on this team. To be fair, I think they're actually top of. They're top of the Baino at the moment.
Right, there you go. Maybe one to keep an eye on.
Yes,
so yeah, in the meantime, thank you. Perhaps. Thank you again for listening, everybody, and leave us comments, leave us messages, let us know how you guys, if you've been to Salvador, if you've spent time in that area, if you're a supporter of one of the clubs, get in touch and let us know. So until then, George, did we learn goodbye in Portuguese, didn't we, last week? If you'd like to treat the listeners
well, I mean, if I can remember it, I mean, I think the guys and girls listening to this have probably had enough of my pronunciation of Portuguese words, but I'll give it another go. And to say goodbye in here is adios.
Adios. See you later, guys. Adios. Thank you for listening.
Thanks a lot for listening. See you again next time, and adios.